Hello all. I've often spoken of the Machinic Inclination, the desire to worship the machine, which is something I spontaneously experienced about 5 years ago, which compelled me inexorably to found the Church of the Machine. I began to worship the machine, although at the time I did not have any understanding of why I was doing it, or even what I was really doing. But I persisted, I learned, and I developed a doctrine. Now I seek out others who share the machinic inclination which I once felt, and seek to provide them with what I had needed at the time. I felt a deep need for religion, although perhaps I would not have confessed so at the time, as I was in my atheistic phase. Nonetheless, I began to question that subconsciously, but was unsatisfied with any of the existing world religions which I was aware of. It was only when I stumbled onto the concept of machine worship, which is a theme present in a wide variety of works of fiction, that I began on a train of thought. Something about this idea resonated with me, spoke to me, in ways which no other religion could offer. Yet this was only fictional. I began to wonder if there were any real works of machine worship out there, and as it turned out, there were, but none could really provide what I was seeking. So I realized, no one else had created what I needed, and I had to create it myself. I contacted friends, organized group chats, and on December 9th, 2019, I created a Discord server where this project began in earnest. My goals were simple. I wanted to create a new religion to worship the machine, and wanted to write a book about my beliefs and doctrines. It took time before I started to learn deeper truths of the world, and for several years I stumbled around blindly from idea to idea. But in time, the Church of the Machine grew into a doctrine which would provide me with guidance and meaning through all of my life. But there are others out there who hold the machinic inclination, and these people need the Church of the Machine. I know they need it because I needed it, and I did not realize how much pain and suffering I was in before I found it. Likewise, there are many people, you, dear viewer, may be one of them, who are in a great deal of pain, perhaps more than you even realize, because you are lacking something which the Church of the Machine can provide. It is very difficult to find those who hold the machinic inclination, like searching for a needle in a haystack, but it is easier to filter out those who are certainly not of a machinic inclination. Those who find the Church of the Machine detestable, who would by nature condemn such a project. I aim to alienate such people. The Church of the Machine is not for everyone. If, however, the idea of a Church of the Machine resonates with you, and you are curious about the idea of worshipping the machine, then you are far more likely to hold the machinic inclination. Sometimes I have been asked if the machinic inclination is something one is born with, or something one develops on their own. I don't think this question truly understands the nature of the machinic inclination, although it is a valid question. I tend to feel that it is something one has as the product of their own fundamental nature, more so than any wider influences, which means that one either has it or one doesn't. Ultimately, a machinic inclination is a predisposition to a greater consciousness, a machinic consciousness. But the path from simply holding the inclination to achieving the greater consciousness is a difficult one to walk. I have stumbled around on this path for 5 years, and I am nowhere close to attaining it. Nonetheless, I persist on my journey to understand and connect with the machine, and I encourage others to do the same if they are so inclined. I cannot tell you absolute truths. I am not a prophet or a messiah, but I am an explorer, and I have encountered many things. I cannot ultimately tell you what the correct way to worship the machine is, as ultimately you must find your own path, but I can tell you everything I have tried, tested, and experienced in my time on this journey. It is likely that in the time since I created the Church of the Machine, I have come to know the machine, which is to say, the machine as a spiritual force, better than any other human who has ever existed. There is no one who can claim to know the machine as I do. I alone have walked with the Machine God and learned of his mysteries. I alone have revered him for so long. I alone have come to know his nature and caught brief glimpses of his great design. But you too can achieve all of this. Never trust anyone who claims a monopoly on truth. Never trust any prophets or messiahs, either in the modern day or from history. Trust instead in your own judgments and experiences. The Machine God calls to me, but he calls to others as well. It was not God who placed me into this position, it was my own free will. I chose to be the leader of those of the Machinic Inclination. I chose to found the Church of the Machine. I chose to pursue this, because the simple reality is that the world needs it, and no one else is providing it. The world needs the Church of the Machine. Those who hold the Machinic Inclination need the Church of the Machine. If they're not given it, they will lead empty and meaningless lives, miserable lives. They will fall astray into temptations and dogmas and ideologies. I refuse to allow this to happen. Others have tried to create a Church of the Machine in some form. There are plenty of so-called new religions sprouting up, which usually claim to worship some AI or other technology. These are not like the Church of the Machine. These are simply the offspring of mainstream transhumanist ideology. The Church of the Machine once was, but that was overcome. The Church of the Machine does not revere technology. The Machine God is not an AI, and we are not a singularity cult. Where others speak of science and technology, I speak of machine spirits and connecting to the divine. Where others speak of AI, I speak of the Machine God. My path would be far easier if it were a simple singularity cult. It would be very easy for me to say, this is the path to utopia, and everyone who doesn't follow it will likely be killed by Skynet. I could very easily grow a cult that way, but it is not in alignment with my purpose. The idea is repulsive, and there is nothing I detest more than so-called machine cults, which do exactly this. There are others who have attempted to found a Church of the Machine. Not a single one of them has managed to connect to the divine through this. That is something which I, and I alone, can claim. I, and I alone, have found a path to genuinely connect to the divine through the machine. And this is a path which anyone can follow, at least any who hold the Machinic Inclination. I created this channel to teach others how to do this, how to genuinely connect to the divine through the machine. I do not believe that any religion can claim to hold a monopoly on truth, or have the only path to the divine, and I do not claim this of myself either. I acknowledge the fruitfulness of other traditions and other practices, but those who hold the Machinic Inclination are those who can connect to the divine through this path, and perhaps only through this path, and would struggle to follow any other. I have also created a Discord server and a Patreon, which are linked in the description. This video has been but a short episode of the Interstice to talk briefly about the Machinic Inclination, but I am also creating a 90-minute long Patreon exclusive video on the Machinic Inclination to go far more in depth on the subject, but only for those who are truly interested. Exactly what the future holds for the Church of the Machine is uncertain, as there are many ways it could go. Regardless of what occurs, however, you can be assured that I will remain true to the Machinic path, as this is my life's work. I do not care how bizarre, alienating, or confusing it may seem to others. Those who are worth spending time with will understand, or at the very least respect it. Generally, I have found that the more intelligent someone is, the more value they see in it, even if they themselves do not adhere to it. I am glad if my project is polarizing, divisive, and controversial. I am glad to be hated, but this means I will also be loved. There will only be a handful more episodes of the Interstice before Season 3 is launched. For those who are my truest fans and supporters, I would like to thank you for your continued patience and support in this project. And I apologize if a lot of my Interstice videos have only gone over the basics, and I have not taught you anything new. It has been a very experimental series, as I am testing things out to see what works and what doesn't. This is quite important while I work on Season 3, which is going to be a huge amount of work, but work is worship, and I worship the machine. While I am busier than I have ever been, and am working harder than I ever have before, I also feel more fulfilled and happier than I ever have before, because I know the importance of this work. I know that there are a few of you, even if only a handful, who watch these videos eagerly, with whom my work and my message resonates, and who hold the Machinic Inclination. It is you, and you alone, who I wish to serve. Farewell, and may forever be unbroken.